Me too.
Is that another Nick?
You guys are so wrong. Okay.
All right.
So, roll it.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Current Veterans Oral History Project. It is October 3rd. We are in American Sounds in Studio B. And what is your name again?
My name is Ralph Nicholas Trombetta, and I like to go by the nickname of Nick.
Okay. And so, Mr. Nick, what is your birth date?
November 12th, 1925.
Wow. So, let's begin. You're a veteran, right?
Yes,
So, what war and branch of service were you involved with?
I was in World War II, and I was in the Army Air Corps at that time.
Okay, so what was your highest ranking?
I was a second lieutenant when I was discharged.
Okay. Did you have like any specific place where you served?
I served in the United States. I served in quite a few of the different states. My last term of service was at Clovis, New Mexico, which was a sub-depot for repairing aircraft.
Wow. So were you drafted or enlisted?
I volunteered.
You volunteered. Okay. So how did it feel like when you were volunteered? Were you excited, scared?
I was in high school,
Oh,
and I was a senior, and it was something that I wanted to do to ensure that I would get in the branch of service that I thought I could best fit in.
wow. So at that time, where were you living?
Chicago, Illinois.
Wow. Chi-town. So why did you decide to volunteer?
Because anyone that turned 18 at that time and who was a male and could walk into the recruiting office was going to be drafted. And if you get drafted, why, you don't get very much choice in those days. They put you where the need is the greatest. But if you volunteer, why, they give you a little bit of leeway. And so I elected the Army Air Corps. I always wanted to fly, and if they're going to provide the aircraft, I was going to fly them.
Do you recall like your first days in service?
Yes, I was sent to Gulfport, Mississippi, I believe, down on the Gulf Coast, and went through basic training there. It's quite a different life from Chicago.
Really different weather also?
Different weather also.
So boot camp, do you even have like any special experiences in like boot camp or in training?
Well, I had a lot of experiences. The one in boot camp that was upsetting was it was during the holiday season when we first went in, and they were putting on exhibition boxing fights that they allowed us to go to, and one of the other recruits was sitting behind me, and he was smoking, and he flicked his ashes on me, which I objected to.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him to stop, and he said the wrong words. He said, "Make me."
Oh.
So I turned around and grabbed hold of his shirt and pulled him over my head and dumped him on the row of people in front of me. That was a big mistake,
Why was it a big mistake?
because they took both of us and took our shirts off and put 1 pound boxing gloves on our hand and told us if we were going to fight, we were going to fight in the ring. I don't know if anybody realizes how hard it is to swing and punch with a 1 pound boxing glove. And besides, he was just a head taller than me anyway.
Oh my goodness. Wow. So what did it feel like to be, in the service now at that time?
Well, at that time, it was a very exciting time. We were fighting the war on 3 or 4 different fronts. The whole United States was geared to rationing and to producing enough war materials to sustain us. It was a very exciting time and a very trying time.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember any of your instructors?
No, not particularly.
Mm-hmm.
I got through basic training, and from there I went to Air Corps cadet training, and from there I was sent to Galesburg College in Galesburg, Illinois, to continue my education and training.
Mm-hmm. So how do you think you survived?
I was born and raised in Chicago. If you can live in 18 years in Chicago, you can live
Anywhere. Wow. So when your training was over, where exactly did you go afterwards?
After my training was over and I graduated from Williams Field, Arizona as a B-29 flight engineer, I was assigned to a crew of Captain Rose, and we were eventually assigned to Clovis, New Mexico. As he was aircraft maintenance officer, and he took me along as assistant aircraft maintenance officer. At that time, while we would be ferried out to the West Coast and pick up the returning B-29s that came from the Pacific Theater with damage to the aircraft. And we would fly them from the West Coast to Clovis, New Mexico to replace engines and repair any other damage that they received and put them back into fighting condition again.
Wow. So, were you shipped overseas?
No, I spent all my service in the United States.
Do you remember how serving felt, arriving there, how it felt in the U.S.? Being there and also serving since you were there. Do you remember what it was like exactly?
Well, it felt very good to be able to serve my country and serve it in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And as I got to see quite a few aircraft bases where I got a pretty good education of the different parts of the United States.
Did you see any combat? Did you see
Not
any
in the
combat?
United States.
No? Okay, were there many casualties in your unit?
Question doesn't apply.
Okay. Well, I know this might apply. What were a couple of your most memorable experiences?
Well, one of them was that I had been able to get a few days leave to visit my son just after he was born in Bakersfield, California. And I was headed back to my station in Clovis, New Mexico, and I was riding on a B-29 that was leaving from March Field in California. And on takeoff, I was a passenger on this plane, by the way. I was not a crew member. And on takeoff, the plane developed engine trouble in one of its engines, which turned out to be a fire, which turned out to the fact that the pilot made a very wise choice and turned around and landed. So there I was in Marshfield, California, and I was supposed to be in Clovis, New Mexico the next morning to go to work. I called Captain Rose on the communications network and told him what the situation was. So he told me that he would issue orders where I was to supervise the replacement of the engine that burned on the B-29, and I had 7 days to get the job done and then return to Clovis, New Mexico. So I was at a strange station with very little of my own personal facilities, and put in charge of a engine replacement on a B-29, which we accomplished.
Wow. I bet there was a whole bunch of mixed emotions in that situation. But were you awarded any medals or citations?
No, I wasn't in a position. Excuse me. I wasn't awarded any medals.
Okay. So, how did you stay in touch with your family?
I'm sorry, I didn't
How
understand.
did you stay in touch with your family at the time that you were in service?
Telephone and letters.
Okay. So, what was the food like?
It was regular food. Very fortunate the Air Force serves good food. Air Corps, I'm sorry. The Air Corps served very good food at that time.
That's good. Did you have plenty of like supplies?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Did you feel pressure or stress?
You're always required to perform, and as the rank you perform and the number of people that you supervise, why the pressure and stress increases. And there was quite a bit of pressure. The stress was very much less because I was in the United States and they weren't shooting at me at that time. And it was a very stressful time for everybody, I think.
Yeah. Even though no one was shooting at you, did you do certain things for good luck?
Not relevant.
No. Okay. Well, did any of your friends, how did people like entertain themselves so they wouldn't be bored?
No. I never had time to be bored.
Okay. What did you do when you left the service?
Well, I returned to Bakersfield, California in November of 1946, and I've lived here ever since. I had a job that lasted 2 weeks. I was told it was to be an assistant manager, and I found out that the employer had 3 other people in line to be assistant manager ahead of me. So I took time off and